What is the strangest thing you've witnessed someone do in public? I was stopped at a red light and there was a lady in the car next to me. She was having really sporadic head movements. Not the head bob dancing type, but just kinda crazy. After like 10 to 15 seconds of this, her neck went limp and her head just hung forward. The light turned green, and I hesitated a moment wondering if she needed medical care, and was about to pull in front of her to check on her when her head abruptly jerked back up, and she drove off without hesitation. Sounds like she was nodding out on opiates. I moved to a town which had a bit of a bad reputation. The first thing I saw when I was bringing boxes in was a man walking down the street with a bunch of plastic bags on fire. He was holding it like a lantern and was so casual about it despite flaming plastic dripping onto him. Woman in an immaculate business suit chasing a chicken down the street. I saw a dude with a suitcase, completely naked, entering our train. His facial expressions were normal. He looked concerned and stared at his phone the entire time until I had to get out. Casual Fridays at the office is getting out of hand. I saw a woman on the GO train pull out an entire white onion from her purse, then proceed to eat it like an apple, as if it were nothing. She was tearing up and didn't seem to be enjoying it much. Once saw a man standing next to an extremely expensive looking home jump headfirst into a hedge, pull himself out, look at the hedge, and jump back in headfirst. He continued to do this for a while until someone nearby asked him if he were okay, to which he responded with, "Don't worry, this is my hedge, I'm just bored." He should have let someone else have a try instead of keeping it all for himself. Just the hedge fund manager hogging it all for himself. Standing in line in a store at the mall when I hear a weird sound from a woman's large tote bag that is also slightly moving. Could swear I heard a quack. Couldn't be though, except it was. She saw me looking at her bag confused, so opened it and showed me that she had half a dozen ducklings in there. She said she had errands to run and couldn't leave them in the car because of the heat. Made sense, but I think carrying around half a dozen baby ducks in a bag is pretty strange. Right in front of my house, a couple of guys stopped their car, left it in the middle of the street, and began a fist fight. Then after a couple of minutes of each of them throwing more or less ineffectual punches, they both stopped and got back in the car and drove away. It's that last part that makes it so strange. If an argument had proceeded to blows, then I wouldn't just get back in the car with the other guy, as if nothing ever happened. Isn't the whole point of a fist fight between friends to resolve the issue? Like you get mad, so you punch each other until you're not mad, and soon after you laugh about it and apologize. Not a healthy dynamic, but that's happened for me. A young couple trying to transport a couch on Vancouver's SkyTrain late at night. Looks like they were considerate enough to move it at night. I watched a woman walk into Chipotle, wash her hands for a solid 5 minutes under the Sprite in the soda fountain, and then fill up a trash bag fully with the Sprite and walk out with it. If I was working there, I'd have just stood there and watched, because there's no way I'm interfering with whatever's going on. Suburban mom gets free soda for life using this one weird trick you won't believe. Cashiers hate her. An old dude put down his suitcase and started doing a weird interpretive dance. The worst part is that this was in a crowd of hundreds of people, and he was staring me down specifically with a creepy smile. I was a couple hundred feet away, and when I looked back, there he was. Smiling. Dancing. Eyes locked onto me. There was a man running down the sidewalk who stopped when he got close and yelled "strange fruit," and then darted into traffic, somehow not getting hit. He ran off down the street yelling about strange fruit. Once saw a man unicycling through a mall parking lot with groceries bags in each hand during a snowstorm. No one ever believes me. They don't believe me when I first tell them and assume I said bicycle. They really don't believe me when I correct them and say no, unicycle, one wheel. I wouldn't have bothered telling you this if there had been 2 wheels. I wrestled in high school and was down about 20 pounds for a tournament. We were walking back to the hotel after weigh-ins and my pants kept falling down as I forgot a belt. One of my buddy's dads asked me if I needed a belt and I said sure do, thinking it was a joke or maybe he had an extra one in the hotel. He proceeds to take off his belt, give it to me, pulls a second belt out of his front pocket and puts it on. No idea why he had 2 identical leather belts with him that day, but I appreciated it. 2 identical leather belts. Why the hell didn't he just give you the one from his pocket? I was riding the Paris metro one day when this middle-aged man sits down about half a car down and is non-stop screaming the most foul, vulgar curses in French at no one in particular. Then suddenly, he hiccups, puts his hand to his mouth and says oh, excusez-moi. And, after a second, resumes his tirade. Once went on a drunken walk alone. At one point, while walking through a part of my suburb, I heard a hello shouted from across the street. I look over and see what appears to be a man who is also walking around drunk. Well, he must have been even worse than me because he proceeded to hug a nearby telephone pole and slowly slide down it until he was laying on the ground, still holding the pole. I've worked downtown for 20 years and have seen some shit. But 2 things come to mind. First, a guy riding a unicycle down a busy city street, all while wearing a propeller beanie and juggling. I figured he must have been practicing a routine or something. Still, the sheer randomness of it made my day. Second, a white-haired old man wearing a sparkly sequined jacket, fiddling with this massive ancient silver boombox. The boombox started playing some funky disco music, and the dude hoisted the boombox up on his shoulder and just started strutting down the street in time with the beat. Dude had his own theme music. I was going to the shopping center in a big city, school trip, to see some movie, and in one village we have been passing through I saw someone trying to cut off a street lamp with a saw. A freaking handsaw. Also, I live in Poland, so we joked that he wanted an outdoor lamp, but didn't want to buy one. A woman lift her skirt, squat and pee on the sidewalk in front of a bus stop. Middle of the day, high-end shopping center, busy intersection. If you gotta go, you gotta go. We saw a guy take a big McSteamy right on the beach. Lifeguards were screaming at him, and the local police took him away. On a high school field trip we went to DC and a man was staring at the school bus while jerking off. Don't worry, that's just my uncle. I think we have the same uncle. Openly weeping while carrying a bagpipe while walking the streets of San Jose, California. Funeral maybe? At Bonnaroo I saw a guy with his pants down, dick out, jerking off and staring at Paul McCartney's end of show fireworks. Then he was showing his dick to some girls and a guy came up and punched him in the back of head, where he then started to hump the ground for a few seconds, then remained motionless, then humped the ground again. Security came and picked him up then. That was wild to watch. I was driving home from the grocery store and saw 2 guys standing at a bus stop. One had all his clothes off on the sidewalk while shaving his body. The other looked very uncomfortable. I don't think anyone believes me. I live in New York City, so that might be cheating, but there's a guy on the US who cosplays as a baby in a pretty interesting way. He'll walk down Fifth Ave in the 60s and 70s pulling a wagon with toys, and every few blocks he'll upturn the whole thing, throw a tantrum, toys everywhere, crying, fists pounding, etc. After a few minutes, he'll calmly put everything back in the wagon and do it all over again. Caught a guy jerking it in a bookstore. To what? The dictionary. When I lived in Fresno, I lived next to a liquor store that tweakers sometimes hung out at. Outside the occasional meth head talking to imaginary friends, there was one guy that would walk around the parking lot collecting rocks. The best part was when he saw my Samoan friend and put his fist up and shouted black power. He was white lol. I saw a guy mowing the middle of a busy street, no grass, at noon. Guy in a mall pulled down his pants, squatted, shit in a planter box, pulled his pants back up and walked off. I saw a man having a staring contest with a stray dog. He didn't speak. He just stared. And the dog stared back. And I stared at them until I realized I was staring at a man staring at a dog which was staring at the man. I was visiting Leicester, then I saw a drunk walk out of a pub, trousers by his ankles, beer in hand. This guy looked around whilst peeing, hands free. That scarred me as a child. Watched a man dip his Rolex watch in a glass of grape juice. He then proceeded to suck the juice off the watch, piss in the cup, and read it the watch. He was humming the chorus of Staying Alive the entire time.